Okay, picking up where the other one left off. We've got another syringe that we're looking at here. What is the total capacity of the syringe in milliliters? So looks like this one goes up to 5 mil, right? How many calibrations are there between 0 and 1? So 1, 2, 3, 4 little lines, but we do have to include that last one, so we'll call it 5 calibration markings. What is the smallest measurable dose on the syringe? So they're saying from 0 to that first teeny tiny little line. How much is it worth? Well, there's only 5 markings between 0 and 1. So, I talked to you about you could just guess and count it up. Okay, count each little tick mark, but you could also think about taking this first big calibration of 1 and dividing it by the 5 little lines. So 1 divided by 5 is going to tell you 0.2. If we count it, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and 1. So yeah, we can confirm it that way. But yes, that one is counting by 0.2 milliliters. Number 4, draw a vertical line through the syringe at 0.6 mil. And it says, note, there are some 5 mil syringes that have 10 calibrations per milliliter. Okay, so we said ours only had 5 calibrations, so it meant that each one of them was counted by 0.2s. But they're saying that there are 5 mil syringes out there that have 10 calibrations from 0 to 1, so that you could count it by 0.1s. Alright, so it just depends on who your supplier is as to what type of syringe that you're going to get. But here we are asked to do 0.6 mil. So we said each one of these counts as 0.2. So 0.2, 0.4, 0.6 should be right in there. Okay. Now number 5 said to draw a second vertical line at 3.4. So if this is 3, realize we're not going to go 4 past it. That would be 3.8. We are counting by 0.2s. So it's 3, 3.2, 3.4 will be the second line after 3. Alright, let's do one more of these. Our 1 mil syringe. What is the total capacity of the syringe above? So that one is a 1 milliliter. How many calibrations are there between 0 and 0.1? Oh, okay. 0 and 0.1. If you count all those teeny tiny little things, there's 10 of them. Okay. What is the smallest measurable dose on the syringe? So again, you can count those out, but if you prefer that division method that we did on the previous problem, we said our first big calibration marking is 0.1, right? And we said there's 10 markings before that. So take 0.1 in your calculator, type in 0.1, divide by 10, and it should tell you 0.01. Okay, so we can go to 2 decimal places if we're given medication with this 1 milliliter syringe. That's huge. You can round that to 2 decimal places. A lot of times we just round our dosage problems to, a 0.1. Just go to 1 decimal place. All right? And we will most of the time wind up using a 3 mil syringe for that. But if you're doing some pediatrics, geriatrics, skin test stuff, you can round to 2 decimal places. So, number 9, draw a vertical line through the syringe at 0.05. 0.05 milliliters. That is not this 0.5. Okay, this is half a milliliter. The one they're asking about is 0.05. So you remember we said this is 0.1. We actually need to be right in here. That one right in there is 0.05. Second vertical line at 0.1 is right in there. That one had a big calibration. That one's easy to find. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some needles. I've got a picture here of some syringes, and we said the insulin syringes are already going to have their needles on them. Okay, most of the time the insulin syringes I've seen are orange capped, but again, just depends on who your supplier is and what they run with. But you can see that everything comes in all different sizes. This one is a tuberculin syringe, right? This one's the insulin syringe. This one's a 3 mil syringe, a 5 mil syringe. Okay, so lots of different sizes. You'll see that they do have a needle screwed into these blower lock tips. Okay, now they've got different guards over them just to protect the sterility of the needle, but also to protect you. Okay, and we'll talk about some of these safety mechanisms a little bit later in the chapter. All right, selecting the correct syringe for the calculated doses. So on page 209, you've got some different scenarios here. But if your answer, like whenever you do your dosage problems and you're trying to figure out milliliter per dose, if your answer comes up to a whole number or tenths of a milliliter, then you could probably give that medication with a 3 ml syringe. Okay. If you would use a 1 ml syringe, that tuberculin syringe could be appropriate for an amount of, say, 0.08 milliliters. Anything less than 1 ml, we can use a tuberculin syringe on. And we can calibrate it into hundredths of milliliters, so 2 decimal places. Now, we would have to use something bigger for, say, like a 3.6. You can't use a 3 ml syringe for that. You'd have to use something bigger, like, say, a 5 ml syringe. That 3 ml syringe would have to, it's going to make you give 2 injections to the patient, and nobody's going to be happy about that. Okay, so use a syringe that's big enough to hold all your medication. That's why we say medication volume is the biggest indicator of what size syringe you should use. On page 210 in your book, you've got this chart where if I give you the ordered dose that we have to give, I need you to tell me a syringe size. Okay, so like a 12.6 milliliter, I can't fit that into a 10 ml syringe. I'm going to have to go bigger. There's not a 15 ml syringe, so be careful. It goes from 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 after that. So we'd have to use a 20 ml syringe. Now, a 9.6 milliliter is going to fill up a 10 ml syringe, but that would be okay, right? It's going to need just a few milliliters shy, a few pieces of a milliliter shy of a 10 ml syringe. 2.8 milliliter can use a 3 ml syringe. Okay, so that's the type of game that we're playing here. You can go ahead and pause and fill out the rest of the table now. Okay, so you've had some time to think about this. Number 4, a 6.4 mil should be a 10 ml syringe. 3.2 mil, you can't use the 3 ml anymore, you gotta go up to 5. Okay, so check through those, make sure you're getting them, but just make sure that your syringe you're picking out is bigger than your dose. Alright, moving on. Rapid practice, page 210. So let's say a nurse calculates a dose of 3.19 milliliters of medication. Okay, that's what our dimensional analysis has given us, is that we need to give 3.19 milliliters of medication. What size syringe should the nurse select, and how much medication will be drawn up in that syringe to the nearest measurable dose? So, 3.19 milliliters. It's a tad over 3 mils, right? So we can't use a 3 ml syringe. We're going to have to bump up to the next one. 5 milliliters. Now, a 5 ml syringe typically is marked in calibrations of 0.2s. Okay, so when we're looking at 3.19, we need to sit here and think, is that closer to 3, 3.2, 3.4, 3.6, 3.8? Okay, so 3.19 is going to round to a 3.2 milliliter. All right. Step 2. If a nurse calculates a dose of 2.9 milliliter of medication, what size syringe should they use, and how much medication will you actually pull up in that syringe? So 2.9 mils is under 3 mil. Let's use a 3 mil syringe. How much medication can we draw up? Can we do the 2.9? I mean, that 3 mil syringe is calibrated to 0.1 calibration markings, right? So yeah, we can do 2.9 mils, just like our calculation gave us. If a nurse prepares 0.06 mils of medication, what size syringe should the nurse select? 0.06, that's a teeny tiny little bitty amount. Anything under than 1 mil, we need to do a 1 mil syringe. Okay, that tuberculin syringe. Can used syringes without needles be placed in ordinary trash cans? Think about this. A used syringe without the needle, can it be placed in ordinary trash cans? We like the needles to go into the sharps container. You remember that red plasticky looking thing? I've got a picture of it later, but anything with the needle on it, it's absolutely going to have to go into the trash can. But a used syringe without the needle, say like an oral syringe, Can we put it into an ordinary trash can? Your book says yes, but check the policy. Okay, so every institution that you work at is going to have a different rule book, right? So just check with them and make sure, but theoretically, if it doesn't have a needle on it, just throw it in a regular trash can. Number 5, what is the main criterion for selection of syringe size? We said volume of medication, or medication volume. And I think this is one of your homework questions, so be careful how you phrase it. You know how you can check it and see if you got your answer right. And it gets really frustrating if you don't phrase this correctly. But I think it's volume of medication or medication volume. It's one or the other. Okay, so play around with that. Let's pause here so we don't get too big of a video. We'll come back and finish up here.